This is Sheep Guarding Llama. I'm Scott Allen Miller. This is the 25th of June, 2020. Welcome to the show. It is Thursday. I had a long day today, lots and lots of work. Didn't get to quit until quite late. Spent the evening. They were watching movies in the living room, so Liesl and I went in her room and spent the evening playing video games together. She wanted to do a hidden object game, so we did something called Time Trap. Really cheesy, but we just blasted through the game. And it was one of those ones, like, there's a loose story. Who even knows what that was? It was basically just hidden objects as fast as we could, so we just sat there going, that, and that, and that, that, and that, and that. And we had a lot of fun with that. And Mia came in and stayed on the bed and just crashed there the entire night. Snuggled up with Liesl while she played, and it was so nice. And she never does that, and it's really clear that she's becoming a lot more comfortable with the girls and figuring out, she's comfortable that we're her family and everything, and she's starting to be like, oh, I can spend time with the kids, and she always wants to check up on them and stuff. She still doesn't spend nearly as much time with them as she does with the adults, but she's getting better, and that was really cool tonight. We had a lot of fun with that. And Liesl and I started playing the 1985 Mac Ventures game Deja Vu. Now, this is one of my all-time favorite games. Absolutely fell in love with it in 1987 when I had it on the Commodore Amiga 1000 when I was 11 years old, so exactly the same age as Liesl. And she and I have been talking about this on Sunday night when we were having our long discussion on video games and careers, and she said that she really wanted to go back and start looking at some of the old games to understand more of the history of video gaming, because it's not something that she has, which is funny for me to think about, because I grew up, we didn't have video games when I was born, really, and then they kind of came about when I was closer to Luciana's age, and then as I got older, video games grew up with me, as did home computing. And so, to me, computers and video games have always been I had their entire history as something that I had observed. And now, for my children, it's completely different. Like, this is established stuff, kind of like how for my parents, pop music, right? They didn't have pop music when they were born. They had big band and they had jazz, but they didn't have pop yet. And then pop music started in the 1950s when they were little, and then they kind of saw the entire history of it as they grew up. Same thing for me with video games and home computing. And so it's weird to think of how Liesl and Luciana view the world of video games. There's this giant back catalog of stuff they've never heard of. And they have no context of, like, what did video games look like in 1982, in 1985, in 1990, 1995? To them, there's always been 3D. To me, it's a recent thing. I still think of King's Quest VIII, the 3D one, as that new experiment in 3D that was a train wreck. And I still remember having these discussions about how 3D was ruining video games and it was just a gimmick. And now it's hard to imagine making the majority of video games without it, right? The world has completely changed, and now it's no longer a gimmick. Now it's full 3D with VR, and that's mostly a gimmick, but that will change soon enough, we think. So we played some of that. We played some of the original Deja Vu. Now, she played the Mac version in black and white. I had color. She wants to do the Apple II GS version next, which we own those two versions on Steam. And she wasn't like really into it, but she was enjoying it. Like, she immediately figured it out. I think she's way better at it than I was at her age. Holy cow. Now, you have to remember, when I was 11 is the first time I got access to video games of any degree. I'd had some ColecoVision starting when I was much younger in 1982, but that was very arcadey, right? There's no story, there's no plot, there's no thinking. It's just press the button a lot and blast things or whatever. It was that mindless early video games. In 1987, when I was 11, we got our first real computer, and that's when we got our first real video games. And suddenly I was introduced to, and most of the world was suddenly introduced to it about the same time, things like The Bard's Tale and Fairy Tale Adventure and Deja Vu and all those things. Like, really serious video gaming started. So I was learning video games at that age, and it was all just new, and I didn't have any history to, like, program my brain on how that was going to work. For Liesl, she's been playing games that are way more advanced than that since she was 4, and by 6 she was, like, really into stuff. So what we're seeing now with her going back and looking at these games that I used to play, she just blasts right through them, even though she's dealing with 30-plus-year-old interfaces, right? So 35-year-old interfaces, right? Very interesting. But we had a really nice time. We played those and a few other video games. We completed a number of things. We started playing Queen's Quest, the hidden object game, really cheesy. But, sometimes those are just fun. Find objects, solve really simple puzzles, have a ridiculous story that no one could possibly care about. It's just kind of how it works. Luciana didn't really feel like playing with us tonight. She was playing with Clara and possibly Tuva, and so it was just Liesl and I, and we had a really nice evening just hanging out together with Mia. And that was pretty much the whole night. We played until really late, and it was really nice. So I'll see everybody tomorrow.